The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. Welcome to The Journey. My name is Kevin Polkey, and I am the host of The Journey. And today we have a returning guest, Ralph Velasco, and has been on our show a handful of times. He's also known as the Continental Drifter because of his travels and bringing individuals all over the world. I mean, from Cuba to Europe to Asia to Antarctica was one of the trips that you did for the first time last year. So we'll look forward to having you back on the show, Ralph, and hearing about some of your adventures.
Great. Thanks for having me. I've loved being back.
So Ralph, just for any new listeners, when you have the opportunity to have fun, and obviously travel is one of those things, but besides travel, what do you enjoy doing when you have time to kind of just have some fun?
I've recently started writing a bunch of books, and so I've really enjoyed putting these books together. So I enjoy writing, researching, formatting, designing. But I love to read. I love biographies and business books, self-help. I really enjoy I'm hooked on YouTube because it's just one of those places where you can go and learn anything. And I literally will sit up at night and say, okay, what do I want to learn today? And I'll just to go down some rabbit hole, and it's just fascinating. So I love to always be learning. So that's kind of what I'm constantly doing in everything.
Well, and I think that probably in a lot of ways, I think since I've known you over the years, I think that being a lifelong learner, along with an entrepreneur, kind of, is parallel with each other. So maybe, yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about, your background. I mean, you've done a lot of different things, everything from the restaurant business to your photography business. So maybe tell us just a little bit about your journey down the your career path.
Sure. Yeah, I always say it only took me 45 years to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Most people never do, but so I was happy that it only took me that long. But yeah, I tried a lot of things. I've owned several restaurants. I was the marketing director for a division of a Fortune 500 company. I sold real estate. My last career was as a financial advisor. And so I did that from 2005 to 2008. And we all know what happened in September of 2008 was the financial crisis. And here I was, this newbie financial advisor. And, my what little business I had was pretty much decimated because no one had money. And so I decided that that was the kick in the pants that I needed to go full time into teaching photography and organizing and leading my tours, which is what I did as it's been 17 years now. That's been 17 years.
And so, maybe tell us a little bit about that aspect. And I know that that has changed a little bit over the last few years. Some of it as a result of the pandemic, some of it just you kind of honing in on more of what you want to do. Maybe tell us a little bit about, how it started off as a photo enrichment aspect, and then it evolved into what it is, the last phase was, and what it is now.
Yeah, so early on, back in about 2003, 4 was sort of the dawn of digital photography, I would say, when people were starting to learn about digital cameras and digital photography. And I saw an opportunity to perhaps teach people how to use these new digital devices, these cameras, these 1 megapixel cameras that we had back then. And I was learning myself, but I felt, if I could just keep one or two steps ahead of my students, I'd be all right. Because I was learning it too. It was that new. So I said, yeah, there must be a way to perhaps create some walking tours around this where we could actually go out into the city where I was living in Chicago at the time, or eventually moved to Southern California where it's more outdoor photography and weather's better. And so that's was my decision. A friend of mine said, "Why don't you get your financial services licenses? Come out here, move out to California." I'd already been out there, work for me, and he didn't say you can do your photography on the side because I don't know that he really knew that I was doing that too much. But I said that I was going to do it on the side. So at nights and on weekends, I would teach photography, and I would. Well, one potential, one tip for your listeners is that if you're looking to test a new business idea, perhaps go to the local. In California, it was the city of Newport Beach. Of course, here in Rockford, it might be Rock Valley College or some of the other, the library, and see if there's a way you could teach an adult education class around your idea. That's what I ended up doing. You would get these quarterly magazines that tell us about the yoga classes, language, et cetera. And they're adult education, so anyone can teach them really. You don't need a teaching degree. So I thought I would create some courses where people could come in and learn how to use their cameras. I could show them sample images, good and bad, before and after, right and wrong. And it just grew over time, very slowly, but because I was, doing my business financial advising at the same time, but at nights and on weekends, I was doing this. And so it was a slow burn, and gradually it grew into now I just recently sort of semi-retired as of May, where it was sort of my last uh, official group trip, where I was doing 10 or 12 trips a year with groups around the world, as you mentioned. But now I'm going to do 2 or 3 trips a year with a real, specialized group of people. And so I'm kind of slowly moving into retirement, I'll call it.
Sure, sure. Well, and I know that as you and I have talked over time, it was, really being able to how to make the business into more about what you wanted to be able to do, and so you could actually, as they would say, work on the business, work instead of working for the business. And I know that there has been definitely some evolutions to the business as a result of that. And I know as you've given me feedback, your clients have definitely appreciated more of the deeper dive into being able to have those experiences. And I think, it started off as you said, photo enrichment, and then they became more of an in-depth trips where you would be able to scout out ahead of time, and then be able to show some things that the normal tourist groups would not get to see.
Yeah, my travelers, the people that come on my trips tend to be a little bit more experienced travelers, and they've done a lot of the, say, Rome, Florence, Venice type of tours, say of Italy. And so they're looking for more off the beaten path. And so, and that was my interest too. I don't love big capital cities that much anymore. I really like countryside or villages and things like that. So I started. Um, People often ask, how do you choose the places that you go to? And I say, really, I have to have an interest in it first, because I have to be enthusiastic about putting the trip together and then selling it and bringing people. So I want to be truly interested in the place. And so I would create trips to places that I wanted to go. And I just happened to be bringing 10 friends along. And
Sure.
so that worked out. And then eventually it started. I created an online course where I was teaching people how to organize and lead their own tours, called Tour Organizer Training, Get Paid to Travel. People were asking me, how can I do what you do? Then COVID hit, and the travel industry was one of the worst affected because we couldn't leave our houses, let alone leave the state or country. And so I was the business was pretty devastated for a couple of years, but I still was traveling 4 or 5 months during COVID. and trying to keep busy and out there and creating new trips. And so after 17 years, I just decided that it was time to kind of step back a little bit, continue writing my books, get some speaking engagements around that, and maybe do 2 or 3 trips a year.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and tell us a little bit. Again, the evolution of the Continental Drifter and the evolution of Ralph. A couple years ago, you started experimenting with writing some books, and maybe tell us a little bit about those books and to where you're at now with your latest book, The Bucket List for Travel.
Sure. Yeah, about 17 years ago, I wrote my first book, which was 101 Tips for Developing Your Photographic Eye and More. That was back in 2009. And it was really a lot of work. And that was before the internet, not before the internet, but before, a lot of the tools that we have today to help us write. And so that book was quite a long time ago, and I wrote a couple little ones since then. But recently, I just I wrote my fourth book in a series called The Mindful and Intentional Traveler, and that book is Bucket List for Travel. And the idea for the Mindful and Intentional Traveler series came about because when I was 16, I traveled to Peru with my high school on a high school trip. And it was 9 students and 4 teachers slash priests that we had on the trip. I went to an all boys high school in Wilmette. And it was quite an experience. And after maybe a week or so, we were there for 6 weeks. You can imagine these 15, 16-year-old boys were moaning about, missing their families and friends and their mom's cooking and our beds and everything. And everything was strange down there. I mean, we're eating guinea pig and who knows, chicken feet soup and all these what we thought were strange foods. So we were moaning a bit. And one of the priests sat us down finally and he said, "Guys, be here now. You have this incredible opportunity to be literally on the other side of the world, learning from these people, helping them in our little ways. What a great opportunity. Take it in. Don't try to be somewhere else. Be here now." And that those 3 words always stuck with me, but they really started to come back up, kind of bubble back up to the surface in the last 4 or 5 years, I would say, as I'm getting older and appreciating traveling deep, not wide. And what I mean by that is doing a deeper dive into fewer places than when I started my trips. It was more about doing a wider dive into a bigger region or country, seeing a whole country or region of the world instead of doing a deep dive. So right before COVID, I created another brand called A La Campagna Experiences. And it's about the fact that when we travel, we can't wait to get out of the hotel. It's like, I'm not staying at the hotel. That's crazy. I'm in this beautiful place. Why would I be at the hotel? And I can understand that. But what if the hotel was a 11th century castle with 270 acres of grounds and every room was like a museum? What if it was a wine estate or some other beautiful former family mansion or something where the property itself is a destination? Maybe you wouldn't be so always ready to leave the hotel. So the hotel was part of the trip. So I started creating those kinds of trips, and that was again about doing a deeper dive, not spending so much time driving from one place to another, wasting time, packing and unpacking all the time. Now we're doing a hub and spoke. We stay in one, maybe 2 locations, and then we just hub and spoke and go out into little villages and see different sites and things around there. And it's worked out fantastically. So that's the idea of that.
Yeah, and I think, I know when we first started talking about, you started talking to me about that idea. I mean, it not only I could tell that it was going to be a great a great idea just because of how excited you were about it, and how much you were excited about bringing this travel experience to your clients. And a lot of times I know you have return clients, and so and then they bring people with them. So it definitely was that end of it. And I know when you first started talking about the idea about the books, it was I remember the first one was just about being able to have like a travel companion doing something, but when you're on the airplane or on the bus or whatever, probably more the airplane than anything else, or in the airport when there really wasn't anything to see, but you still wanted people to be intentional about the travel or where they were going. And then the book that kind of first stood out to me was the book about the mindful traveler from a standpoint of tapping into all five senses. And I thought that was awesome. Tell us a little bit about what was the idea behind that one.
Yeah, when it comes to being mindful and being present, being here now, it's about bringing yourself back to the current moment. And oftentimes, I know, especially as a photographer, we are the worst photographers because we go through these amazing trips with our eye to the viewfinder of the camera. And sure, hopefully we get some good photos and videos, but yeah, I started thinking to myself, was I really there? Yeah, I was there physically. I've got the passport stamps and the receipts, got the photos, but was I there mentally? Was I present during that trip? Because all I remember is, looking through the viewfinder of a camera. And so with that first book I told you I wrote back in 2009, it was 101 tips. The very last tip was to put the camera down. And I think that should have been the first tip in the book is don't be afraid to put the camera down. I always say travel photography is made up of two words. Spend as much time traveling as photographing. Put the camera down, take in the moment mentally with your mind's eye, and don't because photographers are, because I've been on photo tours, I've run them, photo workshops where it's all photography all the time, and they get some nice shots, but like I said, were we really there? Was that person really there? And I think it's so important, especially as we get older. I'm so much more about sitting in a pub in London on a bar stool that's older than the United States of America and having a beer with some old timer. To me, that's much more interesting than going to see some monument or site in any place. And so over time, I think that comes with age to a degree,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
And
appreciation.
I, when you were just talking about, were we really there if we're behind the lens? I think of back when I was coaching football, and there was times when we would be assigned as assistant coaches. Our film guy might be missing or something, so we still had to get the film, and so I may have to be behind the camera videotaping the game. And I remember being that was one of the worst jobs for me because I wasn't able to actually I wasn't able to really coach during that time period, but I wasn't able to actually be in the game because I'm following it through this lens the whole time. I saw the
That's
whole thing,
exactly.
but it wasn't the
That's a
same
great,
experience as being there,
great
or
example.
being
Yeah,
present, and
yeah.
so yeah, no, I think that's a great point. One of the things that I liked about the book about mindfulness, you were intentional about inviting the reader into all five senses, and about being mindful to be present to what were the smells, what were the sights, what did you hear, what were the textures, and I think that was another element of mindfulness, but to be intentional regarding when we're traveling, because I think you're 100% right. There's so many times, where you're you're traveling to somewhere and you're thinking that the destination wherever we're going to land or wherever we're going to, where our condo is or whatever it may be, we think that's the point. I'm like, I remember, as I think I've talked about before, when I used to go on road trips with Diane when we first started dating, that I used to journal that as we're pulling out the driveway to begin the road trip to wherever we were going, I was like, all right, vacation began. Because I wanted to capture the whole experience, not just where we were driving to. That some of the best parts were the travel there were some of the
Yeah,
best parts of it. But I know, I mean, I can fall prey to it as easy as anyone to think that that is the distraction, when in reality that may be, some of the good stuff.
absolutely. And as with regards to myself, I find myself, we're multitaskers. We've come to be that these days. And, I find myself sitting in front of the TV, having lunch on my phone, listening to a podcast or something, doing four different things, none of them well. None of them am I actually focused on and enjoying or, really doing well at. And, sure, we get some more things done, but we don't do them very well. So I'm trying to be much more intentional about trying to, focus on one thing instead of trying to multitask and not doing anything very well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. Well, tell us a little bit. Your latest book, I know you just finished it in June of this year. Bucket List for Travel. Tell us a little bit about that. And what was the inspiration behind it? And if someone uh, had a copy of it, what would they find in the book?
Yeah, so Bucket List for Travel is a book that I've wanted to put together for a long time because I had never found a book where you could actually tick off the items of the places that you've been, the things you've seen, the foods that you've eaten, etc., experiences that you've had. So I put together a list of about 80 lists that have everything from the seven continents to the oceans and states, national parks, lakes, rivers, hikes, great drives of the world, but also gastronomic experiences. Things like eating cuy, which is guinea pig, or I've actually had tarantula in Cambodia, or putrefied shark, things like that. Bungee jumping, base jumping, parachuting, all these different experiences are in one place where you can go in and tick off the ones that you've been to, but almost more importantly is to be inspired to go to other places. Oh, I haven't been there. I never heard of this place. Let me look it up. So it's meant to sort of be a catalyst to new ideas and new places. But I wanted it to all be in one book where someone could uh, actually tick off the items. But also, there's mandalas, which are like adult coloring pages. There's fun facts, intentional quotes. So it's meant for people to break out their colored pencils. And here's my colored pencils to, color in the book. Adult coloring pages are very good for the mind and for bringing us to present and focusing on things. But as you mentioned earlier, I imagine people sitting on an airplane, going through this physical book, and just spending time with it. Some of my other books have crossword puzzles, word searches, mazes, all having to do with travel. So it's a way to learn, but also keep your mind active and also to be inspired about new places that you might not have thought to go.
Yeah. Well, and I think, as we've talked before, this idea of being able to check off certain things to see, what things, have we accomplished, I think is just a human tendency for us to do. And then I really like the idea that it may, there'll be things on there that you may not have thought of, and that you now, because it's on this list, now it's like, oh, okay, I want to check this out, or maybe this would be a good thing. We were just just recently we were looking at planning a trip, Diane and I, with my daughter and her husband, and we were looking at different places to possibly go. And as we were doing that, the whole area was being able to, oh, I didn't realize that was there. Oh, I think that'd be something cool to be a, but it was in some ways it was just because we pulled out an old map and we started looking at it and then started doing some research behind it by Googling it, so no, I think it's a great idea. So Ralph, if someone was interested in being able to purchase one of your books or check out one of your books, what's the best way to go about doing that?
The easiest way would be you could go to my website, continentaldrifter.co/books, and all my books are there and they link directly to Amazon. Or you could go to Amazon. You should be able to search for Ralph Velasco or Continental Drifter or by the title of the book, Bucket Lists for Travel, and the book should come up. But under my name or Continental Drifter, things should come up on Amazon. They're available on Amazon, but you can't buy them through my website.
Awesome. Okay. And for the listeners, as we're getting ready to wrap, is there anything that you would want to share with the listeners, just as we're getting ready to wrap up for today, that we may not have mentioned about the books or about the travel or any new things you're working on?
Yeah, the idea of going back to that, how to be a mindful traveler and with the five senses. The idea with that was to set a timer for yourself every hour or two, just to remind yourself to stop, look, listen, taste, feel, touch, hear your surroundings. And it could be as, woo woo as going up to that castle and just hugging the wall or hugging a tree or something, forest bathing, where you just go into a forest and you just take in the surroundings, the elements, and appreciate that and be present. It's so incredible. Think about the workmen who put together that castle and carved those stones, or the just the natural beauty of a tree or something. And that can't help but bring you back to presence. And this doesn't have to be, only when you travel. This can be in your everyday life too. I just have a travel spin on it because that's what I do. But these are skills that you could use in your everyday life at home and in your own backyard. So highly recommend that as well.
Well, and I think, I think that's a great point, Ralph, is that if I'm, it's kind of like talking about sports, how you practice will be how you play. And if I'm practicing doing that, on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, then when I do get an opportunity to travel, then it's going to become second nature. It's going to be just as I do it at home. So I think
Excellent point. Great point.
and I think you're 100% right. If I there's going to be if I am traveling, there's so many things going on. If I haven't been practicing it, I'm probably not going to put it into play with all the different things that are going on. But if I have been practicing it, it may just be it may allow that your next trip to be even a deeper experience.
It'll become a habit and
Yeah.
you'll naturally do it whether you're at home or you're traveling. It's a great point. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Ralph, as always, I appreciate our conversations. Um, Again, the best way to get a hold of you is through you have different social media handles. You're on all the different social media, but what's the
Yeah.
best way to get to your website?
Yeah, continentaldrifter.co is the hub of everything. You'll find all my social medias there. I just started a TikTok account for the book, and hopefully that's going to take off. So you might check that out at Continental Drifter. So you can find me on the socials at Ralph Velasco as typically, but everything's at continentaldrifter.co.
Okay. Perfect. And for anyone who's watching on YouTube, the QR code behind Ralph, you can definitely take a look at that, and then as well, definitely check out the Continental Drifter website, and then you have access to all the different things that Ralph is doing, as well as the books that he has. As always, I appreciate you being here, and definitely I would encourage you to check out Bucket List for Travel, as well as The Mindful Traveler and the other books that Ralph has written. As always, I look forward to being with you next week.